You ever heard of John Whitelaw? He is the poster child for rags to riches story. I mean, how do you go from cannot read and write to being one of the most influential and prominent people in your community? That's the story of John Whitelaw. Truth be told, these stories are everywhere. In 1894, a man named John Whitelaw came to Washington, D.C. He showed up as a bricklayer's helper. You know what that meant. Carry the bricks, carry the mortar, lift this, move that, step and fetch it. That's kind of what he did. Along the way, he perfected his craft. He became a bricklayer. And he rose up through the social strata in his society, teaching himself to read and write. In 1913, he became the president of the local laborers union. So now he's the president of the local bricklayers, whatever it is. He's gotten that far in his life's journey. But that's just a small part of where he's actually going. As the president, he sees that there's a need for financial help for laborers of his profession and others. And so he forms the Industrial Savings Bank for laborers and tradesmen who can come to a bank where they will be respected and served and treated as human beings, where they can have their financial needs taken care of, get advice and guidance and all of that. That was in 1913. In 1919, he decided to build the Whitelaw Hotel. It is the first class hotel in Washington, D.C., built for blacks and by blacks. The architect was one of the first registered African American architects in this country. The laborers were black, the tradesmen were black. It was built for blacks by blacks. When it opened up, over 20,000 people were here to witness its opening. And for many years after that, people would show up at the Whitelaw Hotel, African Americans, simply because they could walk through the front door. In its heyday, it hosted A-list performers: Dizzy Gillespie, Louis Armstrong, Cab Calloway, Ella Fitzgerald, all performing just a few blocks west of here at the Howard Theater. You will find them in this space. It had a ballroom and a place for gatherings, and it was the place to be in Washington, D.C. It began to decline when segregation was ending and you could get a hotel room in other places in the District of Columbia. And then with the riots of the 60s, the Whitelaw Hotel wasn't impacted very much, but the surrounding neighborhood was. It went into decline and eventually was condemned because of so many code violations, more than you could count. The District of Columbia government eventually bought it, and then they sold it to a developer who in the 90s put about $4.1 million into it for renovation. But before that, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a young lady named Christine. I will not say her full name, but you can Google it and find her. She would tell in an interview how she would come to the Whitelaw. She had no idea of its storied past, and she did things that were perhaps too embarrassing to mention. Back at that time, when she frequented, it had become a crack house, a whorehouse, a shooting gallery. It was just not in its best day. It had not seen its best day at that point. And it was frequented by drug dealers, drug pushers, and whoever else just needed a place. It eventually became a flop house. But after the developer bought it, put, like I said, about $4.1 million into it, they renovated it and turned it into 35 1 to 3 bedroom apartments, which is what it is today. It is the Whitelaw Apartments. When they started to lease and rent the apartments out, one of the first people to rent an apartment was Christine. clean and sober. And she said, I'm no longer here for nefarious purposes. Now I live here. Now this is my home. But John Whitelaw, the son of a slave who came to Washington, D.C., who could not read or write, came as a laborer, rose through the ranks of society, perfected his craft, built up his finances, and he started an industrial savings bank, and he built the Whitelaw Hotel, which is behind me now, as the Whitelaw Apartments, a storied part of the past of the District of Columbia in Washington, D.C. Can I tell you that the Industrial Savings Bank is now the Industrial Bank of Washington, and it is the first successful Black-owned bank in the District of Columbia, and it is still a family-run, family-owned business. John Whitelaw, a giant in his time. The thing I like about history, our history, is that you can find Black history anywhere, because truth be told, our history is everywhere. See you again real soon.